Ladies and gentlemen, today, I want to share something powerful. Something that doesn't just influence how others see you, but how you see yourself. Many chase attention, affection, validation, but the truth is, the most magnetic force you can develop is inner strength. When you live aligned with your values, grounded in your purpose, you don't need to force anyone to miss you. They feel your absence because they once felt your presence. The idea behind the first keynote is one that many people misunderstand. When they hear the phrase, "make her miss you," they think of tactics, tricks, or emotional maneuvers meant to create longing. But genuine influence, the kind that leaves a lasting imprint, never comes from manipulation. It comes from developing a version of yourself that is centered, confident, and grounded in principles. Stoicism teaches that the most powerful way to create absence that is felt deeply is to cultivate presence that is meaningful. When you stand tall in your values, when you move through the world with emotional clarity and strength, people naturally feel the difference when you step back. Emotional independence is not about being detached or cold. It's about knowing that your happiness, your peace, and your identity are not determined by how much attention you receive from someone else. Imagine two people, one who anxiously waits for messages, constantly overthinks silence, and leans heavily for validation, and another who maintains calm, invests in self-growth, and remains rooted regardless of external behavior. Which presence do you think feels more stable, more attractive, more unforgettable? It is always the one who is emotionally steady. People gravitate towards stability because stability creates safety. And in relationships, romantic or otherwise, safety is one of the deepest forms of value you can offer. When you are emotionally independent, you stop reacting impulsively or seeking reassurance at every moment. You learn to breathe through discomfort, to observe your emotions rather than be controlled by them. And ironically, this very self-control creates a sense of respect. Respect turns into admiration. Admiration turns into emotional memory. And emotional memory is what makes someone miss you. Not because you forced them to, but because your presence made an impression that lingers. Another aspect of this keynote is the idea that you cannot elevate your importance in someone's life by lowering your value in your own. If you chase excessively, you diminish your personal gravity. But when you hold yourself with discipline and dignity, people recognize your worth without you having to announce it. Think about the times you valued someone who was calm, composed, and self-assured. Their absence had weight because their presence had meaning. That is the essence of the Stoic mindset. Build yourself so deeply that your energy speaks louder than your words. This approach also teaches you to shift attention inward. Instead of obsessing over whether she notices you, you return focus to your goals, your growth, and your internal state. You build habits that strengthen your character. You cultivate passions that enrich your identity. When you invest in yourself, you stop depending on external dynamics for fulfillment. And when you no longer depend, you no longer cling. That lack of clinginess creates space. Space creates curiosity. Curiosity creates longing. But none of this works if your intention is to manipulate. If your purpose is to trick someone into missing you, you are still emotionally dependent. You are just masking it. Stoicism is about sincerity. You become less reactive because it helps you, not because it shapes someone else's behavior. You develop peace because peace is a form of power. You strengthen your self-worth because your life becomes stronger when you do. The result, that others miss you, is a byproduct, not a goal. Real emotional independence also protects you. It prevents you from collapsing when someone pulls away. It stops you from tethering your happiness to unpredictable circumstances. It gives you resilience in heartbreak, clarity in confusion, and courage in vulnerability. In fact, one of the greatest gifts Stoicism offers is perspective, the knowledge that what others do is outside your control, but what you become is entirely in your hands. So, when you hear the phrase, "don't manipulate, elevate," understand that this is not just relationship advice. It's a life principle. When you elevate yourself, your mindset, your habits, your emotional strength, you naturally elevate the way people experience you. They notice the difference. They appreciate it. And when they no longer have access to it, they feel the loss. That is how you make someone miss you. Not by pushing them, but by rising above the need to. The second keynote reminds us that when you strengthen your character, discipline, and emotional clarity, people feel your absence because they once felt your depth. But what does that truly mean? It means that who you become in the quiet moments of your life, when the world isn't watching, when no one is applauding, when you are alone with your thoughts, determines the energy you carry into every relationship. Depth is not created through loud gestures, dramatic emotions, or constant availability. Depth is created through consistency, truth, clarity, and purpose. And when someone experiences a person with genuine depth, their presence leaves an imprint that is impossible to ignore. Most people operate from a place of emotional reaction. They chase validation, approval, attention, often without realizing that this chase dilutes their essence. When you live for someone else's acknowledgement, you unintentionally make your identity dependent on their recognition. But when you strengthen your character, you shift from dependence to groundedness. You no longer seek constant reassurance. You no longer fear silence or distance. You no longer collapse when someone isn't immediately responsive. Instead, you stand firm because you know your value does not fluctuate based on someone else's actions. Discipline, too, plays an enormous role in how deeply someone feels your presence. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about follow-through, showing yourself that you can remain committed to your own growth. When you take responsibility for your life, you build a quiet confidence that requires no announcement. Whether you are working on your body, your career, your emotional intelligence, your spirituality, or your skills, that daily dedication creates a personal gravity. People are naturally drawn to those who are moving forward, who are living with intention, who treat their time and energy as sacred. And when someone witnesses that energy, they feel it long after you step away. Emotional clarity is another essential element of depth. Many relationships suffer not because people lack feeling, but because they lack clarity. They operate from impulse, confusion, or unexamined wounds. Stoic strength teaches you to pause, observe, and understand before reacting. When you gain emotional clarity, you stop misreading situations, creating unnecessary conflict, or seeking external validation to soothe internal fears. You communicate with more truth, more intention, and more calmness. And people remember that calm, especially in a world full of noise. When someone encounters a person who is emotionally clear, they feel supported even in silence. They feel safe even without constant reassurance. That safety becomes a rare and valuable experience, and rarity is always missed. When you combine character, discipline, and emotional clarity, you create depth. The kind of depth that others notice not because you try to display it, but because it naturally radiates from you. Your presence becomes meaningful without needing to dominate a conversation. Your absence becomes noticeable without you trying to make anyone miss you. People miss not the superficial interactions, but the way you made them feel. They miss the stability, the authenticity, the calmness, the purpose, the comfort of someone who knows who they are. Depth is what separates someone who is forgettable from someone who is unforgettable. You become unforgettable not through performance, desperation, or emotional dependency, but through alignment with your highest self. Your growth becomes the very thing that people sense. Your discipline becomes the silent signal of your strength. Your emotional clarity becomes the rare quality that others admire. When someone has felt the presence of a person who carries genuine depth, they cannot help but notice when that presence is gone. They feel the shift. They feel the difference. They feel the absence, deeply. Not because you manipulated it, but because your energy once elevated their experience of life.